But this is important, and I will point it out because I do believe the number last year, right here, this number last year, 79% this year, was only 63-ish% last year, if I recall correctly, which would be a dramatic increase to go to 80% of students being reluctant, at least somewhat reluctant, to discuss something. Every year, the Heterodox Academy does a survey of college students, undergraduate students specifically, regarding their abilities and comfort speaking freely on campus. And this is all in line with Heterodox Academy does have a professed mission to enhance viewpoint diversity, very genuine diversity on campus, compared to other groups who are more about the narrative than anything else, like narrative uber alles, right? And so this has been a repeat survey that they have done. And so I was hoping to see the whole thing, but it seems that HXA, for whatever reason this year, decided, you know what, we're going to publish this in chunks. And so at the end of April, the Heterodox Academy released its first portion of the 2023 Campus Expression Survey, so named 2023 because the academic year for this year started in fall of 2023. That kind of thing there. And I knew about it when it came out, but I didn't talk about it because I was hoping to see the rest of it. But since they haven't done that yet, first report, presuming there's going to be second, third, and who knows how many more, I'm hoping to see more eventually, but for now, we will hit on the key points. So, Heterodox Academy publishes first report from 2023 Campus Expression Survey. Release data from the annual Campus Expression Survey. The 2023 CES asks 4,730 undergraduate students at four-year colleges and universities in the United States about different facets of their experience relevant to open inquiry, viewpoint diversity, and constructive disagreement. The key findings of the report are that just over 79% of the 4,730 full-time undergraduate students reported being at least somewhat reluctant to discuss, ask questions about, or share their ideas on at least one of 10 controversial topics asked by the CES, and 2, the number of students who reported at least some reluctance to discuss a topic was up 200% up to 200% higher, in the case of the most controversial topics relative to a typical course topic. Now, question I would have with that is what do you mean by a typical course topic? But that's a whole other thing. You mean like a generic chemistry or math class or something? That's when I've seen that, that's the question I've had repeatedly. I was like, well, what's the generic course topic? It's kind of hard to gauge it when you don't know exactly what that is. I'm presuming it's just a gen ed course, just like a generic gen ed course that everybody has to take, but you never know. It could be the introduction to the university course for all I know, because that's the thing freshmen have to take most of the time, or somebody who's new to that university usually does. So there's more to it than that here, and so they put this in here, and I haven't watched this little bit of video yet, so I figure I might as well play that first and then dive into some of the stuff, because I have the report itself open in a different tab. So let's see here. Hopefully this works.
The heart of higher education is a commitment to open inquiry, especially on controversial topics. But are we living up to this ideal?
Open inquiry is needed because the primary purpose of the university is the pursuit of the truth. If you don't have that open inquiry, then that's not what you're after, is the truth anymore. So, hence the reason for that.
I'm Alex Arnold, Director of Research at HXA, here to share insights from our annual 2023 Campus Expression Survey. This year's survey's findings suggest that inquiry on campus isn't always open. In fact, many students hesitate to discuss controversial issues in the classroom and on campus. Nearly half are...
Now, I want to say something about discussing stuff in the classroom. If you're hesitant to discuss stuff in the classroom, maybe it's just because it's not relevant to things going on in the classroom, i.e., certain like news, political topics you would hope would be irrelevant in a calculus class or a chemistry class or something like that. So that's one part of it. But if you're talking about just other generic classes like it is in news and world kind of thing, or politics class, or some of the things where it is relevant and you're reluctant to discuss, that's a different thing. So that's a bone I've always had with some of these things as well. Yeah, reluctance in the classroom might just be because it's just not freaking appropriate to talk about it in the classroom anyway, because the topic matter of the class isn't relevant, but that's a whole other thing.
Reluctant to talk about politics, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, or gender issues. Interestingly, this reluctance spans across all class standings, from freshmen to seniors, indicating that time spent in college doesn't foster more willingness to discuss controversial issues. We must equip our students not just with knowledge, but with the courage to explore and exchange diverse perspectives. The path to truth and understanding depends on it. Join us to bring a culture of open inquiry, viewpoint diversity, and constructive disagreement to your campus. Visit heterodoxacademy.org/reports to learn more and explore our data.
Okay. And that's what we're going to do a little bit. We're going to explore a little bit in here. So let's see. They have some things here about the survey itself. Via cloud research. The close of the survey period, we received responses from 5,009 survey takers. After removing incomplete or potentially suspicious responses, we restricted our analyses to data from 4,738 respondents. I do have one question. What is potentially suspicious? How did they define that? Might be my question on that one. But and it would be a fair question actually to ask, is just to understand that. Anyway, this more than triples the responses of past CES administrations, which may improve the statistical power of our analysis inferences. Yes, it is especially good when you get a very big sample, because people do, a bigger sample is better. You're getting a better representation of the actual population you are trying to get to make inferences about. Anyway, research reports derived from the CES are exploratory and descriptive in nature. This research brief describes what this 2023 CES data tells us about the number of college students in the U.S. and who might be reluctant to discuss controversial topics in the classroom. Let me open that in a different tab. Okay, downloaded. Never mind. So the actual report itself is right here. So it's interesting. Again, this is part 1 for them, and I hope to see more. And that's why I was waiting so long, is because I was really hoping they would release more before I got the chance to dive into it, because I like to look at everything at once. But that's just me. Let us go a little further. What is the Campus Expression Survey? The 2023 Campus Expression Survey asks undergraduate students at four-year colleges and universities in the U.S. about different facets of their experience relevant to open inquiry, viewpoint diversity, and constructive disagreement. Heterodox Academy has been surveying students on topics of free expression since 2019. Learn more on our website. In this research brief, we describe what the 2023 CES data tell us about the number of college students in the U.S. who might be reluctant to discuss controversial topics in the classroom. Again, I would ask the question is, are you not discussing it in the classroom because it's not relevant to the class, or because you're afraid of what the professor's going to say? There are two different things with that going on. And I don't know that HXA has necessarily done the best job of separating those two things when they've done the survey. But to begin with, the core mission of higher education is fostering open discussion, especially of controversial controversial topics, rather. University and college mission statements are replete with claims that they aim to embrace freedom of ideas, inquiry, and expression. That's the University of Rochester's statement. Guarantee the freedom of inquiry required by rigorous thinking and the quest for the truth, Fordham University. Affirm a historical commitment to academic freedom and open inquiry, Southern Methodist University. And include a commitment to free inquiry, Princeton University. However, if high proportions of students feel reluctant to discuss controversial issues, universities and colleges should be concerned about how well they are pursuing their missions. Most definitely, add to that an extension of the faculty, and this is something I've been waiting for HXA to do themselves, is to extend this kind of a survey to the faculty and staff. Because I guarantee, I'd take a wager there's a lot of staff, just based on other surveys I've looked at, I'd take a wager that there's other staff who are, shall we say, staff and faculty who are also concerned. Data show that many students are reluctant to discuss controversial topics. Many students are at least somewhat reluctant to discuss numerous controversial topics, with 47% of CES respondents being reluctant to discuss the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Now, I want to make a point on this, because because the survey is done over the academic year, and the attacks in Israel happened relatively early in the academic year. It was October 7th. You would have been in class for maybe 2 months at most universities. Depending upon when they actually conducted the survey, which I'm guessing probably happened during or after that, that's one of the reasons that number could be so high, is because it is so newsworthy and tensions are running really, really high for that particular issue on campuses right now, in particular. So that's just a note on that to keep in mind. 45% being reluctant to discuss politics, 42% being reluctant to discuss trans identity, 33% being reluctant to discuss abortion in classroom contexts, and 30% being reluctant to discuss religion in courses where such topics are relevant. Okay, thank you. That actually answers my earlier question. Because I just want to say, is it for that? So you're actually talking about in classes where it's relevant. Got it. Thank you. For the sake of comparison, just over 15% of respondents reported reluctance to discuss a typical topic for college courses being taken. This means that the number of students who reported at least some reluctance to discuss a topic was up to 200% higher in the case of the most controversial topics relative to a typical course topic. Again, I ask the question, how do you define typical course topic? In this, it is something that is worth bringing up. What do you mean by typical? Or is the question in the survey just, typical course thing, and let the student fill in the gaps of what they think is typical on that front? So that's just the point I want to make on that. Just over 79% of our survey respondents reported being at least somewhat reluctant to discuss, ask questions about, or share their ideas on at least one of the controversial topics asked about in the CES, which is pretty damn high. I want to say, what was it last year? I think the number last year, I'd have to go back to the video I did last year for this same survey. I think the number last year was only 63%. So to have it jump 16 points like that is pretty damned concerning. And again, I do wonder if that actually has a lot more to do with the timing of when this survey was done, compared to other things. And this is going to be, I will say, because there is so much in dealing with politics and political activism on campuses, this is the only survey they're going to get in the academic year before the upcoming general election in the United States. So I would imagine this is going to be the only one they get that is pre-election thing, and then there's going to be a question of what it looks like after the next election, which will be a different question altogether. Because I do think they conduct this survey. I don't know exactly the timing in the year they conduct the survey, because I think they do conduct it during the academic year, hence the reason it's FY23. Sorry, not FY23. The 2023 Campus Expression Survey is named for the 2023-2024 academic year. I think that's the reason why, but I am not 100% sure of exactly when they conduct it through the year, to be honest. So I would take a point on that, but that's one of the reasons I think this number with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is just so high, is because the timing of when the survey was done was probably right around then. Around when this got started. So, students' reluctance doesn't vary by class standing. Does how long respondents have been in school make them comfortable discussing controversial topics? Perhaps because college teaches them how to have difficult discussions. The 2023 CES data suggests this isn't the case. We compared first-year students who've been in college to students who've been in college longer, and saw the proportions of students reporting reluctance to engage in inquiry about complex and controversial issues remains more or less steady. There were no statistically significant differences relative to years a respondent has been in college. Well, that's nice to know. And you can see it here with a lot of these things. The numbers go up higher for sure. So let's see here with that. I inadvertently downloaded the data itself for this, so I'm looking forward to getting into this, because I know when I looked at this last year, one of the things I did, I think Nicole Barbaro was actually the author last year, so they changed authorship when they did it this time. Then again, I'm not 100% sure, because they're also doing it a little bit weirder than they did last time, because this is like a part 1, part 2 kind of thing. But last year, they did a whole bunch of survey results and put out a bigger report all at once, so that's where I'm confused with this and what's going on. I don't know why they changed that particular approach all of a sudden. any number of different reasons why. I'm not saying it's good, not saying it's bad. I just don't know why. It does make it difficult for consistency over time if you're suddenly shifting things around. But one of the things that I did last year in a subsequent video, and I probably will do it again this year just to satisfy my own curiosity, was to look at it based upon major. Because I do wonder, how many students are from particular disciplines where it's not common to discuss these topics or perhaps more reluctant than others. Like a lot of these things aren't STEM related issues, except for maybe stuff with like COVID-19 or things like that. And so, well, free speech I would count as an issue for everybody, but COVID-19 is a very STEM related issue because it's about medicine and research and biomedical research and things like that. So yeah, okay, right there. But then there's also, of course, the question of different majors and students who are primarily in training for specific disciplines that may not actually have a heck of a lot to do with any of this. Are they more comfortable than others or more uncomfortable than others talking about certain things? And that is an interesting question. If I recall correctly, when I did it the last time, the math majors were amongst some of the most uncomfortable when I did this the last time. I'd have to go back into the video archives. I can't remember everything, but fact check me if I'm wrong on my own video. Let's see. So there is that, and I would be really curious to see that myself. But let's see. Institutions of CES data about the proportion of students who report reluctance in discussing controversial issues represents both a challenge and an opportunity for leaders in higher education. The challenge is to create an environment where students feel comfortable engaging with difficult topics, while the opportunity lies in equipping them with the skills to navigate complex discussions and come to reasoned convictions. By fostering a culture of open inquiry and respectful dialogue, institutions can help develop knowledge and habits of thought to prepare them for diverse perspectives they will help students do that anyway, will encounter in their personal and professional lives. Again, what is a potentially suspicious response? That's the kind of thing there, but very short actually is what this is, but it's very interesting. And I look forward to seeing whatever whatever part 2 looks like with this kind of thing. But this is important, and I will point it out because I do believe the number last year, right here, this number last year, 79% this year, was only 63-ish% last year, if I recall correctly, which would be a dramatic increase to go to 80% of students being reluctant, at least somewhat reluctant to discuss something. That's pretty damn dramatic if that's the case, as just to point out. And so I do wonder what's going on with that. But I figured I'd bring this to you now. I'm hoping to see more soon. And like I said, I pulled down the data and things like that myself, so I may go diving in and see what other things I can learn from it. And of course, I will share it with all of you when I do. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button on the way out the door, comment on the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, all that lovely good jazz. Until next time, I'm Adrian. May you stay curious.